I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, it looks like Hamas is giving into the demands of the Palestinian Authority. The Israeli Prime Minister is on a mission to quash the Iran nuclear deal. And we have a sneak peek into late-night host Conan O'Brien's visit to the Holy Land. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Reports have been tiptoeing around this for weeks now, but it looks like the speculation has just been confirmed. In a groundbreaking shakeup, Hamas has announced that it will dismantle its administration in Gaza and reopen elections there, paving the way for unity talks with the Palestinian Authority. These promises come amidst heavy negotiations between Egypt and Hamas, as well as one of the worst humanitarian crises in Gaza since the terror group seized power.
وفد حركة حماس برئاسة الأخ سمعين هنية من الداخل والخارج سوف يبحث مع المسؤولين المصريين قضايا مهمة على رأسها سبل تعزيز العلاقات الثنائية مع مصر الشقيقة، وأيضا متابعة التفاهمات المصرية الفلسطينية مع حركة حماس بما يخص قطاع غزة وتخفيف الحصار وتخفيف معاناة أهلنا في القطاع. أيضا سوف يتطرق الوفد إلى قضايا وطنية فلسطينية على رأسها سبل تعزيز المصالحة الوطنية الفلسطينية وإنهاء انقسام وتوحيد الصف الداخلي الفلسطيني.
Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has been criticized for exploiting the crisis by cutting payments for electricity and medical aid to the Strip. Also, that Hamas is forced to the negotiating table out of desperation. In response to the worsening humanitarian crisis, Israel has now been threatening to deduct money from payments to the PA so that the funds can be refunneled to help the citizens of Gaza who are stuck suffering in the middle of the political rivalry. It's been nearly 10 years since Hamas seized control of the Strip from Abbas's Fatah government, an especially problematic situation for the Palestinian president since any two-state solution would need to include Gaza as well. But now, just days ahead of Abbas's meeting with President Trump at the UN Assembly to discuss a new peace plan, it looks like he'll be bringing new cards to the table. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu has just finished up a historic tour to Latin America, the first ever visit to the region by a sitting Israeli Prime Minister. Now, after cementing new relations with leaders from Argentina, Colombia, and Paraguay, Netanyahu may have saved the best for last in Mexico by opening the door for new economic development in the future. The visit to Mexico City marked a new step forward in Israel-Mexico relations. Things between the two countries had been strained earlier this year when Netanyahu apparently praised President Trump's initiative to build a border wall on the Mexican border with the U.S. But now the two leaders seem to have buried the hatchet, pledging to help develop Central America together with Israeli innovation.
Israel is known as the innovation nation. We believe that through our partnership, we can bring the fruits of this innovation to the people of Mexico and to many others to cooperate, in fact, as you said, in Central America as we agreed. I think this gives a promise of hope and prosperity to many, many peoples. And there are already 150 Israeli companies investing and working in Mexico. We would like to see Mexican companies coming and investing in Israel.
Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto has confirmed that the historical meeting also yielded a new update to Mexico's free trade agreement with Israel, a plan which will boost water, entrepreneurship, and agriculture for both. And on top of that, President Nieto is hopeful that Israeli cooperation will help deter electronic fraud and other crime that has long plagued Mexico's infrastructure. Well, it looks like this tour was certainly one for the history books. After concluding a historic whirlwind tour in Latin America, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is now in New York for the annual UN General Assembly. These next few days will be especially crucial for Israel, and with us to explain why is ILTV's Aaron Porras. Now, Aaron, take it away.
All right, well, as you said, there's a lot at risk with these upcoming meetings, but there's also potentially a lot to gain as well. On the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, where Netanyahu is set to speak later this week, he's been meeting on the sidelines with leaders from Japan, Rwanda, Panama, people from all over the world. Probably one of the most exciting meetings, though, of course, is his meeting with President Donald Trump, where he's set to discuss either fixing or augmenting somehow the Iranian nuclear agreement or scrapping it entirely. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, I guess it's all going to depend on what Trump goes for, right?
Exactly.
And as I understand, there's also another meeting that that the Prime Minister Netanyahu has actually turned down.
Yes, and that was with Sweden, if I remember correctly. And this is not the first time that he's turned them down, but I'll tell you more in the report.
All right.
As we speak, the Prime Minister is preparing his address to the United Nations for Tuesday and outlining a proposal that he hopes will convince the White House to take the Iranian threat a little more seriously. Indeed, even during his tour of Latin America, the first ever of its kind from a sitting Prime Minister from Israel, Iran was the center of Netanyahu's focus in every meeting.
We understand the dangers of a rogue nation having atomic bombs. In the case of Iran, there have been some news stories about Israel's purported position on the nuclear deal with Iran. So let me take this opportunity and clarify. Our position is straightforward. This is a bad deal. Either fix it or cancel it. This is Israel's position.
Tomorrow, the Prime Minister will have his first one-on-one with Trump since May, a discussion that may be the turning point in the Trump administration's Middle East policy, especially with regards to the Iran deal. Netanyahu will present Trump with a clear plan for either significantly changing the Iran deal or offer an exit strategy for how to withdraw from it entirely. This week holds a number of other key meetings for Israel as well, including talks with Japan, Panama, and Rwanda. But for the second year in a row, one meeting will not be in the cards, and that's with Sweden. Netanyahu has reportedly refused an invitation to sit down with the Swedish Prime Minister, likely because of Sweden's recognition of a Palestinian state. Still, this week's itinerary is certainly a busy one for Netanyahu.
A referendum for September 25th has been scheduled to discuss the establishment of a new Kurdish country in what is present-day Iraq. This following years of war with the Islamic State. To many, it seems only natural that Jerusalem is one of the few, if not the only voice of support for Kurdish statehood. And here to help us tackle the reasons why is Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who served for 25 years in the IDF military intelligence and is an expert in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So let's begin with the basic question. What needs to happen for a Kurdish state to be established?
Well, because of the location of this country, which is like an island between Iran, Turkey, Syria, and Arab part of Iraq, they need the goodwilling of the others, because otherwise they will be confined. They will not be able to export anything, especially oil, if they want to, to have some economy. And but unfortunately, all these countries around them objected.
So, this is clearly a very controversial topic. Why is Israel supporting it? The
Because
establishment of a Kurdish
we
state.
look at this from the principal point of view. The Kurds are the biggest ethnic group in the world which does not have a state. Mm-hmm. If the French deserve a state, if the British deserve a state, why should the Kurds deserve a state?
So how much influence does Israel truly have in the matter?
I'm not sure that Israel has much influence, because here many interests actually are against it. The Turkish are totally against it because they are afraid that this state will create unrest inside Turkey. The same thing is with the Iranians, the same thing with the Syrians, which I don't know how much they are today in control of the country.
So these are the countries that are clearly mainly will be affected by a Kurdish state. Now, how big would this proposed country actually be?
Well, today it will be like a quarter of Iraq, which is populated by Kurds, but potentially when Iran eventually will fall apart, there is another Kurdish part in Iran. And maybe Turkey as well, if the insurgency will rise and the Kurds in Turkey will be willing to join this country, maybe they will gain some kind of autonomy, which will enable them to have some kind of...
But then, we have to go back to the security of the state as well, right? Which is obviously, this is not going to be an easy thing to do, and the country will face a lot of security issues. How do you secure those borders around it?
The Kurds in Iraq have an army. It's the Peshmerga. And they are very effective. They are very brave. Even their girls, the ladies who are the soldiers, they are as brave as could be. And, everybody should take them very seriously, because if they decide to have a state, they, in some kind of a constellation, they might be able to impose their will on the others. And don't forget, they fought against ISIS very bravely, and actually the Americans in some way used them. And I think that maybe America will support this Kurdish statehood at the end of the day.
So speaking of that, you know, when Israel was built, they used a British mandate as a skeleton. What skeleton will the Kurds have at their disposal? And obviously, if it's Iraqi or otherwise Arab, what are the promises of that type of skeleton?
Well, first of all, we have to bear in mind that this part of Iraq is already autonomous for 26 years, since 1991, when the ban on flying was imposed on Saddam Hussein in the aftermath of the war on Kuwait. So they actually have their parties, they have their economy, they have flourishing economy. Erbil, their capital, is a flourishing state with so many cranes. And you know, cranes is building, optimism, investments. And this is what Erbil today, very nice and very very fast developing city. And they have parties, and they have mass media, and they have everything which a state needs. Now, they want to have the seal of approval of the world for their statehood apart from Iraq. Well, I'm not sure, personally, I'm not sure that they will have the referendum, although they talk about this. Maybe they threaten the world by having this referendum in order to maybe blackmail or maybe to get some things from the neighboring countries. Okay, don't make the referendum, we'll give you this and that. So maybe this is some kind of negotiations by threatening of this referendum. But maybe it will be. I don't know what will be.
We still have to wait and see. And we'll also have to wait and see what type of role Israel truly ends up playing in this. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mordechai Kedar. A Knesset member from the ultra-Orthodox Shas party has come under fire for attending the wedding of his gay nephew. And now, after intense criticism from his party, it looks like the MK has officially been forced to resign. With us on this story is ILTV's Brett Allen Smith. Now, Brett, what exactly happened here?
Thanks, Natasha. So right now we're talking about Yigal Goeta, who comes from the extremely conservative ultra-Orthodox Shas party. Now, 2 years ago, Goeta's sister asked him to attend his nephew's wedding, and even asked him to officiate, actually, at which time Goeta learned that his nephew was getting married to a man. Now, despite the politics, despite even his own personal beliefs, Goeta attended the wedding, wanting to make his nephew happy, and 2 years later, the story's finally come out. The ultra-Orthodox are taking this very seriously. They've accused him of desecrating God's name, is how they're saying it, and after intense uproar in his own party, it looks like he's been forced out.
It's interesting that this took place 2 years ago, and is this final? I mean, can they remove him altogether from the party, or is this the end of his career because he attended the wedding?
Right. Well, legally they can't actually remove him from the party, but yes, the Shas can squeeze him out of the list of seats in the Knesset. Now, there are rumors that the Shas leader and Interior Minister Aryeh Deri might find a way to kind of keep Goeta on board for some kind of compromise, but in the meantime, Goeta's resignation is already in, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
2 years ago, Knesset member Yigal Goeta fulfilled the duty of any ordinary Jewish uncle and brought his whole family to attend his nephew's wedding. Now, normally this wouldn't cause much of a wave, but in this case, the ceremony was a gay wedding, and Goeta comes from the ultra-Orthodox Shas party, making this a controversial appearance. At the time, though, Goeta's decision to attend was a completely natural one, even if it did contradict with what he studied in the Torah. The whole family went, my wife and I and the kids, who I usually don't tell which events to go to. But for this, I said that showing up is mandatory. We all went so we could make him very happy, he recalls. Now, 2 years later, the Knesset member is under intense fire from the ultra-Orthodox community, who have slammed Goeta for unabashedly admitting that he attended the wedding in the first place. In a letter published demanding his resignation, the Shas lawmaker is accused of a, quote, public desecration of heaven, words that likely led to his resignation less than a day later. While many Knesset members on the left have rallied behind Goeta's cause, it remains to be seen if the Shas leader and Interior Minister Aryeh Deri will accept the resignation or perhaps work out a compromise to keep him in the Knesset.
All right, now it's unbelievable for me to even say this, but it's been a year since Israel's beloved former president Shimon Peres has passed away. Well, on Thursday, dozens of world leaders gathered in Jerusalem to attend Israel's official state memorial service for President Peres, who is known as one of the forefathers of the Jewish state. With a political career spanning over 7 decades, it was a massive shock for the state of Israel when President Peres passed away last year after suffering a stroke at the age of 93. Peres was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, served as former prime minister, and managed to become a member of 12 different cabinets throughout his career. Thursday's memorial was led by former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair and current Israeli President Reuven Rivlin, who spoke of his accomplishments with great admiration, alongside some of his other major fans.
Shimon and I were comrades on a journey, characterized by hopes and tensions, moments of elation and intervals of despondence, on the way to disengagement agreements with Egypt and Syria, peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan. We built a friendship of a lifetime.
The one-year anniversary of Peres's death also marked the release of his long-awaited memoir, No Room for Small Dreams, Courage, Imagination, and the Making of Modern Israel.
It is autobiography of his interaction with the French government to secure the know-how for nuclear power, or the account of the raid on Entebbe. They read like passages from a thriller. But through each line, we are aware that nothing he did was without purpose.
One of the major topics my father wrote about in the book for the first time is the story of Dimona, the story of Israel's nuclear facilities, the story that my father was the master of its creation, and it is the project that actually allowed Israel to survive and create the right deterrent in a hostile region, and allowed us as a nation to strengthen our economy and to strive for peace.
While President Peres is no longer with us, his family and the nation-state of Israel hopes that his memoir will allow him to live on.
This book is a voice and a message for generations to come. He decided to write the book as a string of dreams that he had and realized, a string of great causes he served, and a string of complicated situations and decisions he had to take in life.
When it comes to issues in the defense industry, the rule of thumb seems to be that he who has the best robot is king. Well, one Israeli company has consistently been at the forefront of robotic development, using their innovations to complete complex missions and save lives. Joining me now in the studio is Zvi Neta, the co-founder of Automotive Robotic Industries, to tell us more. So thank you so much for joining us. What does ARI produce and focus on?
Automotive Robotics produces a unmanned ground vehicle.
Which is, I mean, and this is a huge, huge thing to have in the battlefield, of course. So tell us a little bit about kind of how this unmanned vehicle performs in the field.
Well, it can actually get anywhere, climb over anything, run around any obstacle. By itself. You give it where it has to go, and it will go there by itself. It's autonomous. Right. It can also be man-driven. And basically, it would go somewhere so that you want to see what is happening, and he'll send you the picture back.
Right, and now this was, I'm assuming, specifically developed for defense purposes, right? Or was it also developed for other purposes?
No, the original idea came to protect airports that needed a robot to do the surveillance outside the gates and the fences in case the terrorist would climb over the fence and come in. You would rather send a robot to see who it is rather than a soldier or a security guard who would be killed by the terrorists.
Now, I mean, this is a huge, huge thing for Israeli security as a whole, because it just means less people's lives are going to be on the line when you have vehicles like this. Now, how have you tested it so far? Has it actually been out in the field actively?
Yes, the company was formed more than 6 years ago by Amos Goren, the founder, a security expert. And It has been tested and developed in North Korea, in the DMZ, in a very severe snow and cold area. It has been tested in the Negev desert,
so
where
is this
it's very hot.
Wow, it's very interesting. So is this product on the market already? I mean, are people purchasing it?
The product is going on the market right now.
Okay.
Due to the new investment and money that went into the project in order to sell it in Western Europe and in the border between Western Europe and the immigrants coming in. That in the meantime, we found out that there are many civilian uses, like firefighting, rescuing.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of an array of different ways that you could use an automobile like this. I mean, it really does have so many uses. And like you said, I immediately thought the battlefield, but obviously the first place that this vehicle was created for was airports. Now, what other major innovations are coming up with your company? Are there any new robots that are being planned out right now?
Basically, everything we're planning is done on the same platform, which is an electric vehicle, which is an innovation. We understand that the future of vehicles off the road, on the road, will be electric and autonomous. We were not thinking about autonomous private cars, which is a subject everyone is talking about today.
Of course.
And we concentrate on off the road and situations where you don't see the vehicle.
All right, well, it seems like you guys have already created something that has the ability to save tons of lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited to see what comes next.
You're very welcome.
Well, we're about to see a whole lot more Holy Land on TV. Conan O'Brien has just dropped an exclusive first look at his Conan in Israel special, which airs in just 2 days on TBS. The world's favorite redheaded comedian was all over Israel filming, and now we're finally about to see what he has in store.
Attention, this is Conan O'Brien. Shabbat Shalom. This is an important announcement. Will all Israeli men wearing Speedos please leave the area? Again, all Israeli men wearing Speedos, leave immediately. No one wants to see your junk.
I'm a cultural ambassador.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's late-night talk show host Conan O'Brien on the beaches of Tel Aviv. And if the rest of his special is anything like this, we'll be happy to be along for the ride. Last month, we followed Team Coco all over the country, filming Conan's first float in the Dead Sea, a training session with IDF girls in the army, and even feeding Prime Minister Netanyahu's cucumber-loving dog. O'Brien planned his trip to both Israel and the West Bank to coincide with Jared Kushner's peace envoy to the region, offering his help to broker Middle East peace. Conan even filmed a special scene for the upcoming season of the hit Israeli series Fauda, which just released a tantalizing new look at what the next few episodes have in store. So whether you're looking for laughs or for thrills, it looks like we don't have to wait long for the next wave of entertainment from the Holy Land.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
Well, the Prime Minister is taking all kinds of meetings at the UN General Assembly, but one meeting he refused was a sit-down with the Swedish Prime Minister. So fittingly, our word for the day is siruv, which is how you say refusal in Hebrew. Well, if you just ask someone to marry you, a siruv or a refusal is exactly the opposite of what you're looking for. And trust me, a siruv ain't always pretty. Just ask Culture Minister Miri Regev, who got served a harsh siruv to attend this year's Israeli Oscars ceremony. Ouch. Last time I heard of a siruv that bad, it came at least with a little water for that burn. So unless you want a face full of siruv, you better make sure you make them an offer they can't lesarev, an offer they can't refuse. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear to partly cloudy with a slight rise in temperatures and a low of 70 or 21 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect sunny skies and another slight rise in temperatures to a high of around 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.52 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.